Okay, so Invincible has one of the biggest plot twists in a comic book property ever. The reveal that everyone's favourite superpowered dad was actually part of a race of supremacists hell-bent on making the greatest Queen tribute act ever came out of nowhere. Even when he was doing his best Andrew Garfield impression and denying everything, we knew that he was the werewolf that was definitely appearing in Spider-Man 3, going to take over the world. But was he right? And should we bow down to our Viltrumite overlords in order to allow them to rule over our tiny and pathetic race, who would be lucky to even be classed as a pet? Well, that's what we're going to be discussing in this video, and I'm going to be breaking down the pros and cons of a Viltrumite takeover. Yay! Now there will be some spoilers here in regards to the comics, so if you don't want to know what happens to Nolan after he leaves Earth, then I recommend that you leave Earth, you sucker. Thumbs up buttons right there if you enjoy the video, and don't forget to subscribe for breakdowns like this each and every day. With that out of the way, welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. Now let's get into whether Omni-Man was right or not. Okay, so in Invincible, we discover that the Viltrumites have travelled through the galaxy for millennia, invading planets. Aeons ago, they decided that they would create a utopian society where only the best of the best of the best, sir, were allowed to live. The Viltrumites took part in what could be deemed a civil war, but it was more of a royal rumble that saw 50% of the planet wiped out. The weak were eradicated, and this left a race of people who were classed as the most powerful beings in the universe. Because of this swift and decisive action, Viltrum was left with a society without murder or crime, and every citizen served the council and government. As with most planets, they slowly started to run out of resources and decided to head out into the galaxy where they would conquer and take what they could. Upon arriving at a planet, the Viltrumites would take over, and for centuries they would enforce law and order until the resources were depleted. They did this throughout the universe for millennia, but as they started to conquer more and more worlds, the population was spread very thin, and thus in order to pull off a full-scale invasion, they needed a new tactic. This involved sending in Trojan horses who would appear as peaceful protectors to the citizens of any planet. However, these agents would have a secret agenda and would slowly dismantle the security forces within said planet so that the invasion would be much easier. We of course see Omni-Man doing this in the show, and after he takes down the Guardians of the Globe and destroys several other invading forces, he clearly leaves Earth ripe for the taking. Now throughout the show and comic especially, Nolan seems a bit gutted that his son gets powers. I think this is because deep down he knows his son has been drafted into a war in which he will have to choose a side. As we know, Mark ends up going against his dad, and unlike my dad who would normally treat me to a subway, Nolan treats his son to a subway. Now Nolan ends up leaving the planet as his son gets through to him on an emotional level, and in the comic series we learn that after this point, Mark is held up as the new Viltrumite agent. There even exists certain dimensions and alternate universes in the work where Mark said yes to his dad, and we saw as the pair took over the planet. However, sticking to the main timeline, in issue 44 we are introduced to Anissa, a Viltrumite ambassador who's here to tell us they aren't all bad. See guys, people like having buildings dropped on their heads. Now she approaches Mark peacefully, well aside from threatening to kill Debbie, and explains how Viltrum's World Betterment Committee works as a whole. Now they are called the World Betterment Committee for a reason that sort of hints to their overall actions. Anissa tells us that though Viltrumites take over planets, they actually bring so much more with them. Because they've travelled through the universe for millennia, they've learned a plethora of knowledge that would help humanity to advance in certain ways. Under the Viltrumites, Anissa says that they would share their technology, cure diseases, and ensure that no unsanctioned violence would happen at all. The world would become a utopia for several centuries, free of death and crime, and humanity could live happily until everyone forgot what it was like before they came to Earth. Sure, they would completely harvest the planet in the end, leaving it an unhospitable wasteland that looked like the start of 28 Days Later, or any day in 2020, but humanity, we were gonna do that anyway. Now, instead of being doomed to war and death whilst we inevitably destroyed ourselves, every human's life would be filled with happiness and the wonderful, wonderful joy of Christmas every day. Yay! We even see some of these Viltrum's promises and actions in many ways when Mark is summoned by his father to come help out on Thraxa. Here Mark finds an insectoid planet that Nolan has decided to make his new home. The life forms there only live for about 9 months, and because of the time that has passed, many generations have lived and died with him as their most prominent member of society. You see, Viltrumites actually age slower the older they get, and because of Omni-Man's lifespan, he's been elevated to be the ruler of the entire planet. We actually see what's quite a peaceful world, and Nolan has started a new family there. It's only when the Viltrumites show up to kill him for failing Earth that things take a turn for the worse, but all in all, it looks like a 5-star resort, and the Viltrumites were probably right to kill most of the planet. Now, things definitely could be better under Viltrumite rule, and yeah, they may be, but cons part of the video, they're wrong. They're all wrong. Now, as good as everything seems, yeah, the Viltrumites are just fascists that are typically only open to one point of view, theirs. They hate people questioning them, and Anissa even admits that they have terrible tempers and will quickly escalate to violence even if they're simply questioned. Everything within them is built to be dominant. When they have children, their DNA completely overrides their partners, and even with an insectoid from Thraxa, Nolan ends up having a humanoid looking kid. They're used to having things their own way, and because of this think that's how things should be, but it simply isn't the case. Sure, they would take over Earth and improve the facilities and technology that we have, but in doing so, they would also remove any possibility of humanity advancing beyond what they believe is fit for us. We have a tendency to destroy one another, but there also exists great passion within us and a spontaneous side that means we will always try things differently and push to progress. The Viltrumites don't have this, and there isn't really any joy in their existence. Now, to the main point, I think that we know Nolan isn't right because of how he reacts to beating his own son senseless. An interesting point is that this isn't just a fight between him being a father, it's also a fight over whether he should do his duty or not. Up until this point, he hadn't questioned Viltrum before, but seeing his son there who would still care for him after all he's just put his face through, makes him realise that the love Mark has is worth more than conquering a million worlds. This is why Nolan flies away, and though he doesn't admit it, experiencing humanity and being amongst us made him realise there was beauty in life beyond just subjugating a species so that you could harvest their resources. This is the important message behind Invincible, and why Nolan and the Viltrumites could never be right. They want to keep taking no matter the cost, but don't really have anything to show for it. They don't have partners, don't tend to fall in love with one another, and their society is very much without choice. All that disagree are stamped down, and though they have long lifespans, they're devoid of any real joy or happiness. Debbie and Mark managed to show Nolan the error of his ways, and why Viltrum was wrong. He ended up fleeing because he knew he would be hunted, and that putting his own family before his duty would be frowned upon. But he still did it anyway, and this is why we know Viltrum is wrong. They are invaders, there to stamp out life, and I tell you what, mate, I'm not going to stand for it anymore. It's time for us to get our Cecil Stedman on, raise arms together, and say we're not gonna take it. Come on, throw your best shot. Go on, I'll give you... Anyway, that's our video. Terrible ending. And now it's your time to talk. Obviously, I'd love to hear your opinion on whether you think we're better off with Viltrum or not. Or, you know, if you just think this whole video is pointless because it's never gonna happen. Now, as a thank you for interacting with the video, you'll be entered into a prize draw on the 30th of May, in which we're giving away 3 copies of the Godzilla vs. Kong collection. All you have to do to be on the chance of winning is like the video, make sure you subscribe with notifications on, and drop a comment below with your thoughts on the breakdown. The winners of last month's competition are on screen right now, so if that's you, then message me on Twitter at Heavy Spoilers. If you want something else to watch, then make sure you check out our breakdown on how to kill Omni-Man if you're ever pushed into a corner. We go over the character's weaknesses and everything you need to know when going into a fight with him, so it's definitely worth checking out if you're a complete loser. With that out of the way, thank you for watching this. I've been Paul, and I'll see you next time. Take care, peace.